What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and it's finally time. Time to end yet another expansion pack and move on to a new era for Dungeon Overview. Today we'll be covering the last of the instances for Wrath of the Lich King, the Halls of Reflection. I'll be guiding you through it with my paladin you see here, so with that being said, let's dive straight into it. In the heart of Icecrown Citadel's lower halls lies Arthas' personal chamber, which is regarded by his undead minions as the one place the Jailer of the Damned can truly rest. We've heard rumors of Frostmourne being left unattended in these corridors, which would be a miraculous opportunity should they turn out to be true. We could potentially put a stop to Arthas' ability to harvest souls, as he's done for so many years leading up to this point. We don't know what lies ahead, but we've come too far to turn back now. If this truly is Arthas' place of refuge, and even if we come across the Lich King while inside, we may never get another chance like this again. The Halls of Reflection is a level 80 dungeon with a heroic mode located inside the side corridor right next to the last few dungeons we've covered leading up to this point. Just like the others in this hub, this instance portal cannot be reached without flying, for which you'll need to travel to the upper platform on the right of the raid entrance. Once you make it to the walkway, just head into the dungeon hub onto your left, and the specific portal will be straight ahead, behind the dungeon meeting stone. If you get confused, the portcullises will be labeled for their respective instances. If you've read the Arthas novel, you'll likely recognize the names of these first two bosses. Both Falric and Marwyn were soldiers of Lordaeron back in the days before Arthas rose to power as the Lich King. They were there throughout the entirety of Arthas' youth and watched him grow into a capable young paladin, willing to sacrifice anything and everything for his homeland. Through such acts of selflessness, Arthas had earned many of his people's respect, including that of Falric and Marwyn. When the time came to purge the forsaken city of Stratholme and make the doomed trek into the icy north in pursuit of the Dread Lord Mal'Ganis, these two were some of the first to volunteer their services to the prince. Now, we all know how this journey ended, with the soldiers of Lordaeron being betrayed and Arthas becoming a Death Knight. However, Arthas would never forget the loyalty of his officers during their crusade, and would later raise them to guard his most precious sanctum. These two apparitions of once great men have potentially the most important job out of all their undead brethren within the Scourge, to protect Frostmourne while Arthas rests, and to act as their king's sword and shield should he require it. Though they've long since been honored as heroes that were lost under the undead tide, it's finally time to give these loyal warriors the peaceful afterlife they've always deserved. When first entering the dungeon, you'll need to talk to either Jaina Proudmoore or Sylvanas, depending on which faction you're playing as. Regardless, just talk to the respective NPC in order to set in motion the main event. Before you can fight the boss himself, you'll need to clear a few waves of trash mobs. There's nothing too special to note for these, just focus them down like any normal adds and move on to the boss afterwards. As for Falric, there's really only one ability you have to worry about, that would be called Hopelessness, where the amount of damage and healing dealt is significantly decreased. Specifically 20% in normal and 25% in heroic difficulty. Your best bet here is to burst down Falric as quickly as possible so you can avoid this from stacking too much. After Falric goes down, you'll have to fight a few more waves of trash mobs until none are left and only Marwyn remains. From here, he'll step forward and begin attacking you. This time around, there are a few abilities you want to look out for, the first one being Well of Corruption, which places a small pool of shadow on the ground. Just avoid it like every other pool in the game and you won't die. Probably. The last ability is actually pretty interesting, and what you want to do will change depending on what kind of healer you have. The move is called Shared Suffering, which is a curse placed on a random player that damages them over the course of 12 seconds. The tricky part is that this ability can be dispelled in order to split the remaining damage among all party members. So depending on whether your healer is more comfortable with single target healing or AoE healing, you may or may not want to dispel this one. I'll leave the specifics up to your discretion. So before I go there, I just want to point out that there is absolutely no way I could conceivably do justice to Arthas' lore in just a few short paragraphs. I mean, this is a guy who's had multiple videos by various creators made just for him, an entire novel all to himself, and a whole expansion pack where he's the main character. He is literally the most consequential person in the entirety of Warcraft's history. But if I had to give a ridiculously abbreviated rundown, Arthas is the former prince to the fallen kingdom of Lordaeron that once encompassed the vast majority of the northern half to the eastern kingdoms. He trained as a paladin from a very young age with Uther the Lightbringer, sparred with the then Prince Varian Wrynn of Stormwind when they were both children, learned to fight properly from Myrddin Bronzebeard, had a romantic fling with Lady Jaina Proudmoore, purged the city of Stratholme in a desperate attempt to save the rest of his kingdom, traveled to Northrend to hunt down those responsible for the Plague of Undeath, became the first Death Knight, returned to Lordaeron, murdered his father, slaughtered the vast majority of his former people, as well as multiple other peoples, resurrected defeated Kel'Thuzad and in the process destroyed the Sunwell of Quel'Thalas, brought the demon lord Archimonde into the world, fought Illidan, and eventually merged with the remnants of Ner'zhul's soul to form the first whole Lich King. You get all that? Good. Me neither. If you want to know more, and I mean a lot more, about Arthas in general, I'd recommend looking up Noble87's videos on him, reading the official Arthas novel, or playing Warcraft 3. I'll give the links to each of those in the description below for anyone who's interested. In the meantime, all you need to know is that Arthas is kind of a big deal. After defeating Falric and Marwyn and making your way to the main chamber where Arthas is fighting your respective factions NPC, you'll need to walk forward in order to set everything into motion. Arthas will be stunned, and then you'll need to go talk to the NPC to begin the final phase of the fight. And I hope you weren't expecting to go for the kill here, because it's not happening. The moment you talk to either Jaina or Sylvanas, Arthas will break out of his bonds and begin chasing after you at an extremely slow pace. This wouldn't be too bad if all you needed to do was walk away from him at a brisk pace, but alas, 'tis not that easy. Arthas will construct giant walls of frozen spikes to block your path, which will need to be destroyed by the NPC you'll be accompanying. The trick is that undead will be spawned around Arthas that will attempt to kill the one you're escorting. You'll need to take them out in order to progress further down the escape route. It is also worth noting that Arthas' health bar is completely inconsequential in this fight. He technically has one, but it doesn't do anything if you bring him to 1 health, so don't bother. What's more is that you can't get near or behind Arthas unless you want to die in about 0.5 seconds flat. So to summarize, kill the trash mobs before they can reach the one you're escorting, stay in front of Arthas, and continually move away from the Lord of Undead. And you should survive this fight long enough to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Literally. Once you make it through the tunnel and onto the platform overlooking a cliff, the fight's officially over and there's only a small bit of dialogue to sit through before you can gather your loot. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode and all of the episodes for Wrath. This was a blast from the past for me personally, and I hope you found these half as entertaining to watch as I found them to make. If you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. Links to my social media and whatnot are in the description below, and as for the comment question, this one has to do more with the modern events in the Warcraft timeline, but do you think we'll ever have to confront Bolvar as the Lich King in the future? Personally, I don't want to, and I'm not sure about the direction they're taking him as of late. This is a character that, as nothing more than a human warrior, is one of the strongest characters the universe has ever known. He made Onyxia hesitant to show her true form when disguised as Lady Prestor, and even managed to fend off Arthas' attacks on his soul throughout this expansion. It just doesn't seem right to hint that the corruption of Ner'zhul's Lich King is actually eating away at him. But what do you think? And anyways, that's all the time I've got for today. So until next time, don't die.